Welcome to the Franchise Frontier, the podcast where we explore the evolving franchise landscape, dive into latest industry trends, and share actionable tools and tactics to help you build and grow your business.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Franchise Frontier podcast. Here we explore the world of business ownership while uncovering common pitfalls and things to avoid. Today, we're excited to have our guest, Jacob Bischoff, the co-owner of RIVNT IT Support MSP. MSP meaning Managed Service Partner, correct? We learn something new every day, right? We're excited to have him on the show so we can talk a little bit about IT support, both in the franchise space as a business owner, as well as the starting of a small business. So Jacob, welcome.
Love it. Thanks, Dave.
So when you look back and think about your journey, talk a little bit about your history and what you've been through that led you to this point.
Definitely. I started off in a career that was in the franchising world. Straight out of college, I went to a brick and mortar franchise system selling sports nutrition. Real quickly found that I wasn't a sales guy, but I was real good with the operations side of things, with the IT side of things. So actually through that system, we grew to about 68 locations that spanned across the US. And I was kind of the support guy for them. So that was really the focus, or where my support journey started, was kind of being a solo guy for 68 different locations, internet issues, computer issues, just being that one local source for anybody who had questions.
That's incredible. So when you think back to that, was there a certain moment in time, or just being through what you've been through, is there something that sparked to say, I don't need to be a W-2 employee about this more. I want to start something for myself?
Definitely. But 15 years after being inside of the industry, I think that spark maybe ignited. And that was really, just through after getting a good sense of, what is the IT support generally that either a small business needs, whether that be a brick and mortar small business or a mom and pop small business working out of their house. Everybody has different thresholds and different needs. And so really being able to find what those needs are and then being able to craft solutions for those needs really has opened up our eyes to say, hey, we can do this for more people, for more small businesses.
Now, that being said, and being part of franchise systems throughout your career, would you consider yourself an entrepreneur, or would you consider yourself someone who wants to provide support within the space?
That's a tough question, Dave.
Let's go on the first part. Would you consider yourself to be an entrepreneur?
I appreciate that. You know how my mind works, one question at a time. As far as do I consider myself an entrepreneur, that seems like a really big word. At the end of the day, I see myself and the two business partners as guys who are just out to figure it out. We don't, have an exact game plan for where we're going to be or how we're going to get there, but we know we love what we do. We know we love small businesses. We know that there's a market for the support side for those small businesses, and we would love to fill that niche.
Perfect. And so now the second part, when you fill that niche, does that entrepreneurial spirit come through when you're able to provide that support or educate a business owner on what IT support or MSP might be?
100%. Absolutely. Really, I see this more and more with the team, because they're the ones who are actually servicing support desk requests, right? When somebody needs something urgently, they're the guys who are coming through in that pinch to save the day, for the lack of a better word. I think there are some very simple things that could either be implemented or simply just taught that are going to go a long ways. And the things that we're able to teach anybody is good fundamentals, not only for your business practices, but also for your personal practices. So when we talk about being, super detail oriented on what emails you're looking at, a lot of people think, oh man, that's kind of crazy, until you get those bad emails that come in. We ultimately like to try to stop those emails from coming into the system, but there's always that level of education that the end user has to be diligent about what they're looking at or what they're accessing.
Yeah, the best way I would explain that is it's never a problem until it's a problem.
100%.
And I think that with AI, with technology, with the way things are going, there's a lot of people that are trying to get into your emails, get into your business, get into your bank account,
Yeah.
however that swings. And so I do think that there's probably a huge amount of information and or education that the common user really has no idea.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about going from common user to small business owner, there's a ton of things that we think about in order to run the business, right? How am I going to sell X product? How am I going to support X people? And we're overlooking a huge number of things within IT support when it comes to email encryption, X, Y, and Z. I don't know a bunch about it, but just the overall understanding of what IT involves. And so, how would you describe what is the overarching thing that an MSP sort of takes care of?
Well, being a managed service provider, we're trying to be all encompassing on the managed service side of things. So we will take care of everything from license procurement, hardware recommendations, even to the point of if you want us to be on the account, if you have internet issues, we could call into your local internet company and actually work through troubleshooting steps with the company on your behalf. So that way you as a business owner don't have to deal with that directly. And we do that with a lot of different services.
That seems like another interesting little nugget that you wouldn't pay attention to as the business owner. I would have assumed that I would have to take ownership of why that Wi-Fi is not working, but that's another little layer. So every owner of any business goes through growing pains. When you talk about starting your business, and I would imagine it comes from customers and those type of things when you first start out. How do you balance that? What's the hardest stage of starting a small business?
The hardest stage. The first one, right? I think it's getting yourself to the point of thinking through or identifying where your business opportunity is, but then taking that first step towards it, right? Ideation is great. Thinking through it is great. But at the end of the day, if you don't do, you end up with a bowl of soup, right? Like you just don't have anything. So you always just have to be willing to make that first step. And that's really when the journey begins, right? Thinking through it, all of it is crucial, but man, the fun really begins once you start acting.
Business ownership, like most things, we would love for said business or said project to be perfect when we start. But
For sure.
oftentimes that's never the case. And so I think to your point, being able to start a new business and take those steps forward and then find your niche or find where your strengths or weaknesses are to help grow your team or those type of things, I think is the only way to start.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
100%.
from having this podcast, oftentimes I hear from people a lot that they always say, I wish I would have started sooner.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And I think that there's just a lot to be said for that. Oftentimes it's, fear. Fear is the biggest thing that holds us back.
Yeah.
So when you talk about building your team, what kind of people did you look for? What kind of values did you look for early on?
I struck gold when I brought on Samuel in for a position. And really he was one of the first hires that I made solely by myself. I remember sitting in a restaurant inside of a hotel down in Dallas when I did my first interview with him. And he just had a good energy. He was infectious. And one of the things that he led off with and he closed with was just simple as, I want to make your life easier. Great. Like that, if you have a drive and ambition and you have the right mindset, skills can be taught. There are a lot of things that, you just kind of said it, right? For a business owner, when they take that first step, if you're waiting for everything to be in line and be perfect, you're never going to make that first step. Samuel is a good example of that. He just had the drive and the curiosity inside of IT to keep going for the next thing, right? How can I make this thing better? How can I make that better? So, really, when I look for people, when I hire them right away, it's not necessarily caring so much about the technical traits of them, because those things can be taught, but it's more about, hey, I like this person? Are they going to be coachable? Are they going to, right, take feedback the correct way? I'll tell you, one of the things that I learned right out of high school, I joined the United States Marine Corps. And it was always interesting to me because it was kind of a twofold thing when we would go to the shooting range, right? It was easier for a drill instructor to teach somebody to shoot if they had no experience than to teach somebody how to shoot if they had a lot of experience, because most of the time then you're training them out of bad habits or this or that. And so even on that side of things, right, it's like bringing somebody in who might be a little greener or fresh in an area isn't necessarily a terrible thing. That just means that you get to guide that growth through that individual a little bit more.
That's incredible insight to that as well. And my question would be, I think as we talk about business ownership and those type of things, oftentimes an IT business is probably overlooked. But would you agree or disagree that finding the right culture, even within that space, is probably one of the most important things for how you're going to run the business, how you're going to treat customers, and overall, how you're going to operate?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think culture is any business that you're in, culture is king, right? Like, especially on our side where we're bringing in employees who are going to be customer facing. And that's one of the things that I've talked with everybody who's come underneath me is I don't ever expect us to be able to answer all the questions, but I expect us to be able to figure out an answer to all the questions, which I think just relieves a little bit of the stress on an IT agent. It just makes their job a little bit easier or a little bit less stressful. And that allows them to have a better interaction with the customer. At the end of the day, as long as we can take care of the customer and we can get them back on the way, it doesn't matter how we got to that solution. As long as the individual is persistent enough to find a solution, that's what I'm looking for.
And I think in the IT space, to kind of backtrack a little bit on your meeting with Samuel, his ability to say, "I'd like to make your life easier."
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that there's a better term if you have an IT problem or an email problem or I signed for something I wasn't supposed to sign for. That should almost it's going to be on record here, but that should be a motto on your t-shirt whenever you guys create a t-shirt for your business. We want to make your life easy.
I like it.
Yeah. So when you talk about clients and culture and that type of deal, how do you get that portrayed to the client? How do you ensure your clients feel the same level of care and responsiveness as you do for your internal team?
I think that's where the heaviest burden falls onto my shoulders. It's just building that relationship with individuals. And I think that, I don't want to say that it's one of the things that would make me unique, but like between all three of us owners at RIVNT, we all just want to see small businesses be successful. The last thing that we want to see is a small business that has to take a hit because I'll say it, hackers be hacking and somebody gets into an account or messes up a wire or somehow money is gone. And it is so quick. As soon as that money gets wired out of the account, you've got seconds to try to pull it back. Otherwise, it's going to be gone for you.
That's a great segue. So if you were talking to small business owners that even themselves would admit they're not very tech savvy,
Mm-hmm.
how would you just explain in a nutshell what RIVNT does?
We're the grandson, right? If you're like old people, they get a remote and they're just like, I don't know how to work this thing. I call it my grandson. That's what we want to be. It's one of those things where we pitch our services. Any IT question you have, send in a support ticket. I always make a office space joke right before you take the printer out back and show it a good time. Drop in a support ticket. Let us at least see, even from remotely, we can log into the system. We can make sure there aren't any common issues. Not saying that we can resolve all the issues, but at least we can make sure that X, Y, and Z aren't affecting it. And maybe it does need to be taken out back to be shown a good time. Who knows? But at least give us that opportunity to look at it. And that crosses anything, big or little. If you need a password reset, if you need your MFA reset, if you have an issue sharing a document, drop in a support ticket. We are more than happy to take.
MFA, multi-factor authentication?
You nailed it, dude.
Oh, man, that's a big one.
And that is a big one. People don't understand, but and some people hopefully it's cumbersome, but it's one of those things in today's world. If you're operating without having a multi-factor authentication into your business accounts, scary. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, this is a quick sidebar, but I was on a flight a couple months ago. I left my phone in my car, and I needed to log in to check an email or something, and so I had somebody else's phone or computer. And let me tell you, I couldn't even hack my own system, knowing my system. So that's the multi-factor authentication, circle of death, as you will. So when you think about business ownership again, and you talk about like those small businesses, you just want to help them out.
100%.
What is one of the most common IT problems that you see slow companies down?
It's the common problems that are easily resolved that take 2, 4, 6 hours because you're waiting for maybe even a day because you're waiting for another company to come up with a resolution, right? A lot of the simple ones are just a password reset. Very simple. Hey, I can't get into my account. I tried going through the password reset, but it's not working. What do I need to do? We love that. I mean, we will be there real quick for you guys, right, to get you back in the account, make sure everything's square. We don't have any funny business in it, and we're just up and rolling. Other common ones are SharePoint issues, right? Or just Dropbox. Maybe not Dropbox so much as OneDrive, right? When it's one user who's working on a file and it's a shared file, and now you've got 2 or 3 people all working on the shared file, and we're not sure what file is a live file, and it can get confusing. Drop in a support ticket. We'll come in, we'll help start to, dissect, okay, what are the documents that we're looking at? What's the master document? Who's the owner of it? We can help kind of dissolve all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I know it's from my time being in business. Oftentimes those shared drives, whether it be Google, Microsoft, or whatever, that roadmap to where that file leads is kind of a Charlotte's Web,
For sure.
per se. You get, you do something and you open your computer and you bring up what you think is the file, and it's the old file, and you kind of and it's stressful. But I think that there's something to be said for those basic tasks that oftentimes frustrate the average user. That's what a managed IT support does.
Yep.
That's what they're there to do. They're there to say, let us help you make this simpler.
Yep.
So when you think about that, how much does having a managed IT support company like yourself, how much time does that free up for a common business owner?
The amount of time it frees up, and with the added benefit of all of the back-end tasks that probably aren't being done right now to help protect your system that are going to be done, obviously from my side it's unquantifiable, right? It's with somebody that has a system that's monitoring your logins. We're watching to make sure that whoever's logging into your system should be logging into your system. Because even with the MFA, hackers be hacking, and there are ways around it. But we take those extra steps to make sure, hey, we know the IP address that it's coming from. We know that this is a good login, and so we'll allow it. Or we work through the remediation of getting the user out and making sure that we have a locked down account. But so it is tough just because it also just varies on the size of the team. Obviously, the more people that you're working with, the more silly kind of random support needs you have. So certainly as your team starts to grow and you're getting more devices online, eventually you're going to get to the point of where you either need to look to bring somebody on in-house or you need to partner with somebody. The benefit to a partnership is we come with the expertise. We come with our own set of tools. We're ready on day one. Instead of bringing somebody in internally and then having to have them be a specialist in, your Microsoft or your Google email tenant, having them be a specialist in the cybersecurity side of things. Those are 2 different skill sets. And so when you partner with somebody, we can bring all those skill sets to a small business.
Yeah, and you bring up cybersecurity, which is obviously, one of those hot topics. Is there one misconception that you'd like to clear up with cybersecurity? Are you downloading?
A misconception with cybersecurity. We just had a post on LinkedIn the other day that, cybersecurity is optional. And obviously to some level it is optional, but when you get into it and when you've seen what we have seen and you see the number of accounts that we are remediating each and every week from bad logins or attempted logins, that misconception of it's optional, it really is a misconception. If you aren't doing basic things like putting on a spam filter on top of your email, just make sure that the emails that are known to be bad or that are known to have malicious links aren't coming into your email. Very simple. But if you're not doing that, you're already missing out. If you're not doing a third-party backup system somewhere, those would be the two things. If I could tell anybody, if you need to know where to start, you need to have a good spam filter on your email and you need to have a good third-party backup. Because that way, if you ever do run into an issue, you always have that backup where you can, if you have to, spin up new email accounts and bring all that information back over. Or, you just have that spam filter, which ultimately is what's that first layer of protection for everybody in the system.
I mean, just so you know, I'm a master angler when it comes to catching fish now.
I know.
It's one of my favorite things to do on emails. And I'll be honest, when you say hackers be hacking, I would tell you that oftentimes now I'm impressed by some of the emails that I get. I got one yesterday that was a supposed message from Twitter, aka X now. And it said that my account had been hacked and that in order to restore it, I would have to click here. Right. And at first glance, I was going to click it. But then I realized that the email provider it was coming to was not one that would be associated with that account. And I literally kind of smiled to myself and I said, hackers be hacked.
But even that due diligence of making sure you know the sender. A lot of people don't think about that. There are very simple things that when you look at an email that you should be able to identify, okay, do I know the sender? Do I know who it's coming from? And then there are other triggers, right? Like the grammar that's in it. Things are easy to read. Obviously the big things, if there's a high call of action or something that is calling you, to click this button now, be skeptical. Be skeptical of everything. It's better to not click on something than to click on something. Or if you get that email, go to Twitter, go to X. Don't click on the link to reset your password. Always go to that source system.
And, as much as it pains me to say this, oftentimes as you're part of a company, you're asked to take these cybersecurity tests and these, all of these things. And it's kind of a pain, right? But at the end of the day, I would tell you that from taking those short courses or things to just keep you abreast of what's going on, it perks your interest in, am I being hacked? Is this a bad email? Where if you didn't pay attention to that and you were one of those people that caught yourself being like, I'm not very tech savvy.
Yeah.
You're going to be clicking on a lot of things that are going to really be a detriment to your business.
Yeah. And you nailed it. And I think, even again, you being able to look up at the sender, I'm assuming is coming from the training that's done at your current employer. And that's, I think, one of the bigger things that we are trying to do is we just don't want to resolve issues. We want to educate end users to not have those issues. So if we can, show people the right way to catch a fish, that's a great example, right? The correct way to be able to go through and look at your emails and discern, hey, am I expecting this email? Do I know the sender? Is the attachment legitimate? Because there are a lot of bad things that can happen if we start clicking on links that we don't know.
Absolutely.
Even last week, we had a personal friend reach out to us because his personal email account was hacked and he was locked out of it. Not even a business account, his personal account. So the hackers be hacking. They're coming for you. If you haven't been hit yet, it's gambling, right? You're just rolling the dice.
And so as we circle that around to business owners, franchisees, franchisors,
Yes.
Let's talk about RIVNT and how that partnership works. How does a franchisor, possibly a big franchisor who's looking to provide IT support to franchisees, how do they contact you? How do they get a hold of your services? Understand that. And maybe if it's not on the franchisor side, what services or whatnot are you trying to provide to possible franchisees in terms of small business ownerships?
I think as a franchisor grows, you've got two different facts of support that's needed. You have a corporate team that's going to need support, but then you have your franchisees who also need support. Going back to my prior experience experience from the franchisee side, I know that we had to have an internal support because the corporate office wasn't going to give us support on our computers. They weren't going to give us support on our printers or on our internet. We would get told to either find somebody local, right, or a number to call or something. But so that's where we want to be able to come into a system, especially in a franchise system. When you think of franchising, you think, man, I'm buying into a system, I'm buying into a business that has everything lined up, or as much forming lined up as possible. The market material is ready, the operations is ready, the IT should be on point. Part of that IT should be the support and the security that comes along with owning and operating that small business. And I think that's the biggest benefit for the franchise system is by a franchisor partnering with us. We are able to bring MSP level support all the way down to the individual franchisees for a fraction of the cost of what they would pay by going in market to a local MSP trying to get support for a small business.
And I think there's another great point to that is when you talk in franchisor, oftentimes there's a lot of remote employees.
Yes, sir.
Franchisees are all over the country. So therefore, when you talk about the system and how people are into their Microsoft accounts or whatever, it's coming from multiple IP addresses from all over the country.
Yeah.
And that's not something that the common person or the common IT team can handle. It needs to be taken seriously because you can seriously be taken.
Yeah.
It needs to be taken seriously because you can seriously be taken.
Yeah, I might write that down.
Yeah, that's a good one. So I think that there's a lot about that. There's a lot to be said for understanding that as you grow, as you scale, you know, if I'm a small business owner, I need IT support to keep my mind at ease and free up my time to run my business. As a franchisor, you need IT support to hyper focus you on the franchisees, but also provide that upper level portion of the playbook that's also involved with operations, sales, et cetera, that you get with franchising.
Yeah, correct. And if you have the right IT team, right, like we'll work through third-party integrations for systems. You know, there's just so much inside of the world of IT. And I know we just kind of went down a rabbit hole of cybersecurity. A big thing that we also provide is just that help desk support, right, where it's business hours. If you have a question or a concern or an issue, you have somebody in your corner, and we are ready to do whatever we need to help you get you back up.
But we all know that nothing wrong happens during business hours. It's always when 501 is when hackers be hacking.
Yeah, that's the truth. And we're always, I mean, support tickets come in all the time. We always have agents that are looking at those support tickets. So yeah, any support issue that's needed, just drop in a ticket.
Perfect. So if you could leave business owners with one takeaway about the role of technology and their success, what would it be?
I think you nailed it. I think it's take it seriously. Understand that there are bad things that can happen. And it's most of the times it's not going to be like a scrape on the knee type of bad things, right? If a hacker gets into your system, I can almost guarantee you they're not going to do anything good for you, right? They're not going to set up new email rules that are
They're not putting like,
yeah, exactly. They're not going to make anything better for you. So taking it seriously at the beginning, it's easier to keep people out than it is to have to kick them out once they're already in. So, you know, the best offense is a good defense, something like that, right? Sports guy,
Yep.
Something like that. Always be on that defensive game. Train your employees, make sure people are taking it seriously, make sure that you have the right tools and systems in place or the right partnership. And that's where we want to step in. We're going to make it simple. We're going to come in with systems and processes already lined up that don't interfere with any kind of workflows. We try to be optimized for workflows. And so it's really just partnering with that right company.
So when you talk about RIVNT and what's next, what's upcoming, what are you excited about 2026? What are some ways that obviously people could connect with you, or what are some ways that you could get in front of people and really just share with them oftentimes what we just talked about, but on a scale that helps their business?
You know, in 26, I think we're still looking forward to growth, right? We're still in a full-blown growth mode. I think that there are several emerging brands, franchise events that we're excited to get out. I think that there is still a lot of work to be done just at that simplistic level, right? If we could get companies that are coming to us that are just saying, hey, we need a spam filter and that third-party backup. We don't need, the daily support or anything like that. We just want to make sure we have the basics. That's really what we want to drive for, because we know systems will continue to grow, but that bare bones basic security is really what's at least going to help prevent 80% of those issues.
And so if people are going to contact you, can they just go to your guys' website? Is there somewhat of a call center or LinkedIn reach out possibly where you would be able to communicate with them?
Both of those go straight to the website. There's the contact us. It'll go to an email or LinkedIn. RIVNT has a page. My personal LinkedIn, you can DM me.
And what is that? What is the website?
RIVNT.com, RIVNT.com.
Perfect. That's excellent. Because I know, the one thing that I would be worried about in 26 is obviously AI is coming. It's here, but it's gonna continue to grow.
For sure.
And I think that there's a whole nother IT aspect, MSP aspect of that as you grow that out as well. So I know that will be something that people are definitely going to have to look into to make sure their business and their well-being is being protected.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, Jacob, I thank you so much for being a part of the show. We know one thing for sure, hackers be hacking. So hopefully this episode helped you discover your why a little bit more. Dive into business ownership on all levels. With IT support, that's a level oftentimes overlooked. So we hope that we provided you some insight on that. If you need to get in contact with Jacob and his team, RIVNT, RIVNT.
Yep, nailed it.
.com. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Franchise Frontier.